Hello and welcome to Security Scan. I am Vishal Dahiya, and this week we will take a holistic look at India's military might. India has retained 4th rank in the global firepower index of 136 countries ranked on the basis of their military capabilities. While United States of America, Russia and China are ranked 1st, 2nd and 3rd respectively, major military powers like France, United Kingdom, Japan, South Korea, Turkey and Germany are trailing India to form the top 10 in the global firepower list. While our northern neighbour, China, continues to retain its lead in terms of ranking, as per the GFP's assessment, India has more armed personnel than China. Pakistan slipped 4 spots to 17 this year from 13th spot in 2017, trailing behind India on several parameters, including military personnel and firepower. So what are the salient features which make Indian military a force to reckon with, and what are various steps being taken to further augment the strength of Indian Army, Navy and Air Force? For more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests from all these 3 forces. Let me start by introducing them to you, beginning with Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha. We also have with us Retired Air Commodore Prashant Dikshit, and from Indian Army we have Retired Major General Ashwani Kumar Sibach. Welcome all of you gentlemen to Rajya Sabha TV studios. Let us try by trying to understand this entire concept of ranking nations' militaries and whether they're indicative and what exactly are they indicating towards. With you, Admiral Sinha.
Firstly, we as far as the power definition is concerned, military power, economic power, diplomatic power, the national power, to my mind, it defines your ability as to how much can you influence the decision making of the other countries, either they are neighbors or they are far off, and therefore this is that capacity. And if you go to Henry Kissinger's book, he says that the power is a measure of equilibrium amongst the countries as to how much can you influence the decision making and how much can you change the international discourse. So that apart. Now that is, since we are talking only about military power, as you pointed out very correctly, that because India has larger number of military personnel than China, and that could be one of the reasons that why we are so much ahead of France, etc. Because they are not, they don't tell you relative power against which enemy, which adversary, and that is a very important part.
Okay. So
I would think that yes, we are doing well. We have come up a great deal. But to imagine that 4th position is all might, because if you go to France, you will find that the actual ability to deliver fire on a particular target, they may have more than us.
No, so there are several aspects.
So there are a lot of aspects.
They might have an edge.
So depending upon what aspects have been taken into account, what are the metrics which have been taken into account, it will vary. But it's a good thing to that India has really moved up.
Okay, Commodore Dikshit, if you look at the entire concept of power calculus, we are, the military power specifically when we talk about, and when we have these rankings, this is one of them. Maybe weeks later or months later, years later, there might be some other parameters. Some other agency might come up with some more rankings as well. But the point here is that what exactly rankings like these indicate?
Frankly, I am quite disappointed with this whole process of determining the level of power, because this is not a credit rating approach, neither it is a loan rating approach. I'm afraid we can't work this way. Our nation's capacity to withstand the war-fighting potential is of its own. Several parameters are there. I would heartily recommend a reading of Paul Kennedy's Rise or Fall of Major Powers, where it talks about what is that thing about. Although that description more fits conventional warring capacities, but the long and short, it shows us the way. It shows us our nation's capacities, technological advancement, economic powerhouses and other capacities to blend and to proceed. Now, in the list of countries which you stated in front of us, the first is US, the second is Russia, third is China, and we are fourth. So the first and the second are providing power to the fourth to become a power. It's a paradox. This paradox will remain with us, Vishal, till we are able to do things on our own, and we have the capacity to sustain what we have set out to do. India by design, is a benign power. Founding fathers of the Indian state had assumed a certain role for the Indian state in the world order. And if that has to remain, then we have to be doing things on our own and be able to look after ourselves. We spend from 1.6% of the GDP. These other three countries are probably ranging from 4 to 8%. Figures are indeterminate, we would never know. So I would most humbly suggest that in this forum here today, at least I will endeavor to put down this credit rating approach. It would not fit us. Contrarily, some of our young generations will read this document and might go in a wayward path. It is for my panelists to make a comment on that, but I leave that to you, Vishal.
Okay, we'll look at all three forces one by one as well, and when we talk about them, obviously we'll take that aspect as well, which you pointed out, Commodore Dikshit, that we need to go ahead and achieve what we have set out to do. Let's first bring in General Shivach on this. On the preliminary aspect, General Shivach as well. You've heard both the panelists as well. What do you make of ratings like these?
No, my viewpoint is it is a wholesome, it is a competitive, and they have done a lot of study on that. It is a combination of your military power, your economic power, your political power, your diplomatic power, and that is how this rating have been made. It is also your geographical location, and it is also as to in the world scenario how much you can project your power to your neighbors and internationally. To me, it looks like that it is indicative of your standing in the world. It may not be exactly, but it is somewhere there. So therefore, the point is that we must consider that if we have been rated number 4, we have come up a long way. Like there are certain obvious plus point as far as India is concerned. In plus point which is there is the manpower, which we have. It's a big resource compared to others. The another country which has got equal manpower is China. But China has a problem, it has got an aging population, whereas we have a young population, 30. This is a very big power. Industrial power we have got, and military might over a period of time we have it. So my point is, I feel it that this is indicative of our emerging power. And you remember, we are now holding on to force for 2-3 years, and we are coming up. If you see it, that we may be slightly away from China, but we are coming up. My only point is, this must be a satisfaction to understand that we are there, but we have a long way to go. Okay. This point has to be understood very clearly. As far as Army concerned, Air Force, Navy, we have a long way to go, because our problem is that we have adversity on the either side.
Okay, a long way to go, and let's now look at that particular path as well, one by one, with all three forces. Let's begin with Admiral Sinha. Admiral Sinha, when we talk about Indian Navy, whatever we have in terms of strength, be it this rating or that rating or the actual figures as well, one thing which we know for sure is that Indian Navy is on its way to go ahead and build new platforms on its own, make use of the indigenous talent as well, Make in India program, and is considered to be one out of the three forces which seems to be moving ahead in terms of achieving what we have set out to achieve, as was pointed out by Commodore Dikshit. So how do you see Indian Navy from here onwards?
Vishal, the Indian Navy, fortunately our ancestors, they started on the right line. And they gave the indigenization as a very major boost. So 87-88% of our ships are built in India, they're manufactured here. But that scope needs to be widened, as Commodore Dikshit rightly said, that we have to reach where we are supposed to reach, and that will happen only if your weapon systems and the platforms are manufactured here. Let's take Navy's case. Majority of our ships, the aircraft carrier was the only one which was not being built here, and that is the one which is now under construction, and hopefully by 2020 should see the daylight. While we have made such huge the platforms, we haven't been able to make a mine sweeping vessel that we are buying from South Korea. So now we will make that. So our attention to bigger platforms, to my mind, has been more than high-tech equipment. We should have actually invest little more on high-tech equipment. As far as submarines are concerned, you can see that the nuclear submarine has been built first, and we still don't have full technology of the diesel submarine. Whereas one would expect that you go step by step. So I think that as far as Navy is concerned, we are absolutely on track. But what is required is now to have more and more weapon systems, either by technology transfer or by development of your own weapon systems and new platforms. Second thing that is required here is that the private sector has to be taken on board for the assembly lines or the manufacturing lines to become more and more, so that our requirements are met. Right now, PSUs are not able to meet the requirements of the armed forces, particularly the Navy, because we want induction at a quicker rate. Unless you are independent, indigenously, you cannot become a very great power.
Okay, so as you're pointing out, a lot has been done, but as I said, there is always a scope for improvement, and that is where we are looking forward to. Let's bring in Commodore Dikshit here. Commodore Dikshit, from the Indian Air Force's point of view, and the way the situation was maybe a few years ago, and the kind of improvements which have been happening step by step, how do you see the Indian Air Force shoring up its strength in the years to come and coming up to that level which is the required level for us?
Vishal, as you yourself have noticed, Indian Air Force is very popular these days with what kind of controversy surrounding itself. But having said that, we cannot go away that there has been an endeavor for capacity building. Service chiefs in the past have taken the Air Force for out-of-reach exercises just to satisfy themselves that they have the wherewithal, means, training levels to achieve an activity which a nation of our size may be called upon to do. So we went to 2 red flag exercises in other part of the world in US and found ourselves not wanting at all. We were successful. The Americans are exercising with us these days, as you have perhaps read in the newspapers.
The COP in here.
Yes, and also we have exercised with the Southeast Asian countries. They've been coming to us at Kalaikunda, and we have done well. The exercise Gagan Shakti has satisfied us substantially to say that in a 5-day operation we could achieve much more. And as you saw, aircraft took off from east and went and attacked targets in west seaboard. That's an achievement. But these are all small portion achievements. Can we sustain? How do we arrive at the context and the complex air power with our total overall objective? In Air Force fills a large number of objectives. So do the other services. We are in search and rescue. We are in calamity support. We got 2 military powers on either side, both rising, especially one in the north, which is a potent air power, now bragging 5th generation stealth aircraft. And we have to contend with all this. In the last discussion which we had, we talked about having developed a BVRM, if we recall. What about other areas of work? All this is only possible, Vishal, if very quickly and briskly we get about doing our own work, which appears very distant to me, because the Indian technological levels for highly sensitive, high value technological things is still very poor. There was a certain hope that with the arrival of new weapon systems, the offset program which comes along with them, we've allowed the imbuement of certain more technologies within us. But that is not happening at the pace at which we are wanting to do.
Okay.
And as Admiral told me in a private discussion that maybe a lot of private players should be allowed to come into this game so that the improvement is rapid. Yes, I fully agree with him. But do we have a methodology in the current construct of our acquisition procedures to move briskly? I'm afraid I don't see it.
Okay.
Your acquisition schemes and programs are dilatory. And the other day I learned that we still don't have a proper method to assess whether offsets are delivering or not delivering.
Okay.
There are studies being done. So we have I would only say that this capacity building in the Indian state, in the Indian civilization is only possible, Vishal, if we get on to do our own thing as quickly as possible.
Okay, and to pick up the pace as well as you pointed out, let's bring in General Sivach as well here. General Sivach, from Army's point of view, we have heard, reports coming in the past few months that the Army has been planning to do a restructuring of sorts, to improve the teeth-to-tail ratio, one, and then also, shed the excess flab. We have had new equipments coming in recently. M777 officer was inducted. Then there are other things as well which are happening as far as Army is concerned. How do you see the future roadmap for Indian Army in the same context as Navy and Air Force as in augmenting its capacity?
See, Vishal, there is no denying the fact the Army has realized it, that they need a money. As on today, whatever is the budget, the 80% of that money is going in a revenue, and that is about your pay and allowances. Only 20 is been left for capital, for modernization. And therefore, there is a requirement of make the Indian Army lean and mean. You cut the tail, and therefore you have some fund for modernization. There is already a transformation study going on as far as Army headquarters is concerned. In this is one of the points that possibly about 1.5 lakh personnel will be cut in a phased manner, so that we have got more money available for capital. Second thing, what they are doing is to improve the response system, that we are now, instead of going in the conventional way, it will be integrated battle groups. So there's another study which is going on, possibly it will come. Now, as on today, what one realized is that over a period of time, Indian Army had learned one thing, that they can able to fight on a conventional warfare on two fronts. That is against China and Pakistan in a worst case scenario. Are we prepared for that or not? That is a mute question, and we are going for that. So as on today, you remember one strike corps has been already raided for mountain. We were quite okay as far as plains were concerned and deserts were concerned. We were lacking in mountain. It has been already raised. It is almost 70% raised, that's 17 mountain corps. So because the response toward the Chinese side has to be increased. As far as other weapon systems are concerned, they are on the pipeline. Like you remember that as far as Pakistan is concerned, it is 1/5 of our economy, 1/6 of our population, but their budget as well as their army is 60% of us. So it doesn't gear well with them. It means because they are spending almost 4 to 5% of their GDP and we are only spending 1.59, they are the biggest adversary as far as India is concerned. So is the China. So therefore India cannot relax. India need weapon system. But the mantra of the day is Indianization. We cannot depend upon import, because most of our items and weapon equipment are being imported because our public sector undertaking are not able to take on. The private players have to come. Indianization has to go on. Remember, as far as Pakistan is concerned, which I told you, they are 1/5 of our size in everything, including budget. But where they are still having edge is attack helicopters. They have far more attack helicopters than us. They have a more self-propelled gun. Now we are going for K9 Vajra, which is L&T is now collaborating with South Korean firm, and we are going to manufacture, and they are going to come. Same way Apache attack helicopters we bought. So my point of telling is Indian Army is on the track. They understand what is the 10 years enhanced. They are going for modernization. Wherever is the flap, they are trying to cut down by carrying out a transformation study. In future, Indianization will be the mantra of the day, and they are going in a big way. Wherever Indianization can be taken place by bringing the private players, that must be brought in.
Okay, so let's now look at the strategic part, Admiral, and let's begin with Navy only. It is in the recent past, it has been said that Indian Navy, and it has been moving towards being a blue water Navy. So, what are the strategic goals which we are specifically looking forward to?
The primary objective of our Navy is to make sure that the sea lanes of communication are open, even during a wartime scenario. To that extent, the Naval Chief has mentioned, and even on the 3rd of December he mentioned that all the choke points, which are the entry and exit points from the Indian Ocean, they are being watched. So reconnaissance is one big issue. We have got fair amount of control on knowing as to who's where. Can we sustain those firepower? That is what the roadmap has been charted, and hopefully that in the next 4 or 5 years we should have it. But as you said, strategic interest, well, India's strategic interest is to become a country where people are well-to-do, people are happy, people are secure. And to meet those economic objectives, the Navy's support is extremely important as far as the trade is concerned. Similarly, the Army's support is important because the borders have to be quiet. Air Force's support is very important because the Army will need the Air Force, so will the Navy will need the Air Force. So I think that the strategic interest, if you see the calculation of this area, India is one of the very few powers which is capable of hitting economic targets far off from its own land. So therefore, in case India gets threatened in its own heartland, we have a method of responding, and that needs to be strengthened, which is happening. Right now, we just had the Arihant's full peacetime patrol role, and I'm sure that the next one and the next one, they will carry missiles of slightly longer ranges. So we have to make more of these so that we are not going to allow other country to dictate their terms and deter them from fighting. That should be the strategic objective, and I think that is what the objective is.
That is something which is in part being achieved. From the Air Force's point of view, Commodore Dikshit, the roadmap ahead.
I think the Air Force's map is precisely what K. Subramaniam said several decades ago, before he passed away, that India has no option but to be power with all its ramifications. And that is what is the strategic link up globally. Let me be very candid, Vishal, we are not alone. We are a part of an apparatus, and we have to play that game. And the Air Force's game domestically is to make sure that the skies are protected, and that whenever it's called for in aid of civil power, it is there to help out. And in the event of a conflict, it reaches out and neutralizes the adversary. Simply said, these are the three goals. But in order to do that, it must have several segments and colors of weapon systems on board, and for which it should be able to do things without any trepidation, so to say. That is what I said in the beginning. We have to be able to build those capacities. Air power is an expensive, high-tech process, and it moves very rapidly. If you do not act in time, then you are bound to land up faltering. Some good things have happened. For example, the acquisition of the S-400 missiles from the US, Russians, is to truly protect our air defense systems to an extent that we can hopefully hit the rising missile miles away as much as 400 to 500 kilometers. And similarly, the air power is being brought in, some of which we discussed last time. But we have to be able to satisfy ourselves that we can sustain this process if the events unfold unfair to us for as much as 4 to 5 weeks. Do we have the capacity for that? I don't think we are ever able to come to that conclusion with sincerity. And there is a measure of uncertainty which surrounds us. And this can only be overcome if we do things ourselves. And for that, I may be miles away, but that slogan cannot be forgotten.
Okay, so we are making those strides, but yes, there are some gaps which needs to be filled. General Sivaj, final word from you as far as Indian Army's perspective is concerned, and you pointed out earlier as well that tackling two adversaries, that is Pakistan on the western front and China on the northern front as well. But then how are we going to go ahead and do it specifically from the Indian Army's point of view?
See, Vishal, there is no denying the fact that Indian Army is on the right track as far as modernization is concerned. And it has taken a task for itself that it should able to look toward both the adversary together. And therefore, it is equipping, it is training, it is modernizing in that way. As on today, remember that Indian Army is involved in anti-terrorism operation in Kashmir Valley and anti-militancy operation in Northeast. But notwithstanding that, our conventional, preparedness is a requirement of the day, and that has been done. As far as modernization is coming, it is, though of course there is a financial crunch, as I told you, that there is hardly money left for the capital. But in time to come, the money is being given by the government, and you are going for modernization. M777, Hauser, lightweight, which were not there, which are now been come to Indian Army, basically for mountains with 17 core. and also for northern border. Then again K9 Vajra, I told you, self-propelled. Another thing which is going to happen in modern this thing, that attack helicopters are going to come to the army, which was a long standing requirement. A mechanized operation can only be fought in case you have a aviation sort of platform which is available to you.
Okay.
So attack helicopter possibly are now going to come to the army for more coordination. Any war which has to be fought with the adversary has to be a jointmanship between Army, Air Force, Navy.
Okay.
No part or can only become modernized leaving the other two. All three of this segment have to go together. But as far as our Indian Army is concerned, Indian Army has recognized that you need to modernize yourself. You need to cut your flap, which is the requirement of the day. Possibly Indian Army is going on the right track.
Okay, so as our panelists are pointing out that the entire process of modernization of all three forces is definitely on track in terms of be it the acquisition of new equipments and platforms or indigenization. But there are some gaps, there are needs to go ahead and fill those gaps to understand the entire necessity of augmenting the capacity of all three defense forces. We'll come back again next week with a different topic and different set of guests. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.